Fank, Madam Secretary, Mr. Inspector General Mark Smith, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, and members of the public. Today is Tuesday, September 26, 2023. It is 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Suthers, Shields, Briggs, and Garcia are present, and we have a quorum, Mr. President.
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. The Police Commission is committed to ensuring equal access to its meetings. It is requested that individuals who require the services of a translator contact the board secretary no later than the day preceding the meeting. Whenever possible, a translator will be provided. Sign language interpreters, assisted listening devices, or other auxiliary aids and/or services may be provided upon request. To ensure availability, you are advised to make your request at least 72 hours prior to the meeting you wish to attend. All public comment will be heard during item agenda number 2. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of the speakers will be a speaker in this room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate between speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. Number 1, submit a speaker card to one of the officers who will then give the card to the board secretary, indicating you wish to speak during the meeting. Number 2, submit written public comment in advance of the meeting to the email address policecommission@lapd.online. Number 3, if you've logged into Zoom, raise your virtual hand. Number 4, or you can call into a phone number listed on the agenda and press *9 if you want to speak on an agenda item. If you wish to just listen to the meeting, you can call into the phone numbers listed on the agenda that are designated for call-in and listening. Message for those attending the meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there is a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. While in a boardroom, members of the audience must be seated. Standing is not permitted. In the past, standing may have been permitted for a few, but moving forward, this courtesy will not be afforded to attendees except for credentialed members of the press. All attendees must be seated. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. Additionally, I will make note that the board's approved rules do state that signs, posters, banners, or other display materials which disrupt or otherwise impede the orderly conduct of the meeting or which create any obstruction to another person's attendance or ability to view or participate in the meeting are prohibited. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. At this time, we'll move to item number 1, the report of the Chief of Police. Chief Moore.
Commissioner President Suthers, good morning. Commissioner Vice President Shields, Commissioner Briggs, Commissioner Garcia, Mr. City Attorney, Mr. Inspector General, and Mr. Fank. As I do each week, I'm going to speak initially on significant events and then talk about our crime as well as our personnel strength. Regarding significant events this last week, I want to thank each of the commissioners, as well as Mr. Tiefank and Mr. Smith, for attending our 2023 Above and Beyond ceremony. This was our opportunity to recognize 23 individuals, 16 of those being awarded the department's highest award, that being the Medal of Valor, and the remaining others being awarded the Purple Heart. These medals are awarded to some of our best, and I want to extend my appreciation to the Los Angeles Police Foundation for sponsoring this event. Nearly 1,000 attendees were able to hear and see the acts of bravery and the dedication and the sacrifice. Tragically, in these award ceremonies, 2 of the individuals recognized were recognized posthumously as a result of their actions. The next matter I'd like to discuss is Friday night, early Saturday morning. A tragic circumstance occurred at about 3:45 a.m. in the southwest area of Los Angeles when a Southwest sergeant had responded to a termination point of a vehicle pursuit involving a stolen Kia. When that pursuit terminated and a investigation was ongoing, she was outside of her vehicle when a DUI driver struck her, carrying her on the windshield of the vehicle for some 60 feet. That driver then did stop. He was arrested and booked for felony DUI. The sergeant's condition was very critical. She was transported to a nearby hospital where she remains. I visited her bedside on Saturday. She suffered injuries, both significant head injuries and trauma, as well as contusions, broken bones. She is in stable condition, I'm happy to report. We are working to get her and her family every resource to seek her full recovery. The following event I wish to speak to is on Saturday, the department held its 6th annual Heart of LAPD Walk. This was a wellness and suicide prevention mental health seminar that gathered hundreds of personnel from not just LAPD, but this year with the addition of Sheriff Luna and the Sheriff's Department, as well as LA World Airport's Chief Cecil Rambo, had agencies from throughout this region that came together, survivors of suicide victims, individuals who have taken their life in times of mental stress and turmoil. This was an opportunity also for outreach and support by agencies that seek to provide for the wellness of policing, recognizing that as a profession, we lose more individuals to suicide than we do any other cause of death, any other line of duty death, more than double the number. LA is not immune from that. I want to thank Chief Psychologist Edric Dorian, as well as his entire staff, for organizing this event, as well as the support of the Police Foundation in orchestrating this remembrance, this opportunity to heal, and the hope of moving forward and ridding us of this terrible disease that impacts us all too frequently. Also, want to call out that we had a series of town hall meetings, both involving outreach to the Evergreen Park community in the Hollenbeck area following the tragic murders of 2 individuals this past summer, including that of a 16-year-old at the hands of what we believe is a 14-year-old individual. The efforts there, and joining with the local council office, was to discuss the expanded deployment and added police personnel for that park and in the surrounding neighborhoods to ensure the safety of the entire community and to ensure that the programming there is not stopped or interrupted by this type of senseless violence. It's critical that Rec and Parks personnel feel safe, that they're there to put on and orchestrate important programming for the youth as well as others in that area. Lastly, I want to speak briefly about a canine contact that resulted in a hospitalization that occurred yesterday afternoon. About 2:30 in the afternoon, Southeast officers received a LoJack hit. This is a tracking system that exists on vehicles that will allow to be activated upon the vehicle being stolen and act as a homing beam, if you will, for police officers to identify and locate those vehicles. So that LoJack hit occurred in the area of 94th and Main, and officers went to that location and subsequently went in pursuit of a vehicle. The pursuit lasted about 8 to 10 blocks when it then terminated, and the driver, later identified as Daniel Montiel, exited the vehicle while still running, and while it was still running, and fled into a nearby complex. Officers set up a containment and initially did not locate Mr. Montiel, a canine search was commenced after a community member approached the officers and advised that the individual was hiding in a fourplex of bungalows nearby. As canine officers searched the bungalow area, the canine involved alerted to some nearby bushes adjacent to the structure. The canine went into those bushes, at which time a canine contact or bite occurred. The canine was called back by the handler, and the individual was taken into custody without further incident. There's no officers or others that were injured. However, the contact made by the canine did result in his transportation to a nearby hospital where he was admitted for the delivery of antibiotics given the nature of the bite, and he is in stable condition, and he will be booked for the stolen vehicle upon his release from the hospital. Next topic will be crime. I do want to draw attention that while the city continues to see a reduction in violent crime of 6.7% in all categories of crime, of violent crime, we're challenged in the month of September in regards to an increase in shooting violence. September is the first month of this year that we've seen an overall increase in the number of shooting victims in comparison to the previous 8 months. The increase has been an increase of 15 additional shooting victims this year versus last. And when we look to understand where those shootings are occurring, they're primarily occurring in 3 areas. First is Harbor area, which represents 13 of the 15 increase, as well as followed by Topanga and Mission out in the San Fernando Valley. Underlying influence of this we do believe to be heavily influenced by gang and street violence. Our investigators are working to identify those responsible, and we have seen a slowdown and a reduction in the Harbor area after the initial weeks of seeing this sudden surge in shooting violence. Year to date, we have 163 fewer shooting victims than last year. That's a 15.6% reduction, but I felt it was appropriate in that after a string of 8 months of month after month reduction in shooting violence compared to last year, that would point that out. In regards to our officer-involved shootings, there were no officer-involved shootings this last period since my last report. We stand at a total of 25 officer-involved shootings year to date. The same period last year was 28, and this is a total of 13 fatals this year versus 13 fatals last year. Our 4-year average is 23 officer-involved shootings, and our fatals are at just under 10 for a 4-year average. There was numerous reports last week by others that officer-involved shootings in Los Angeles are actually increased or have increased this year versus last. And that is not accurate. And I wish to just again draw the media and others who have repeated those statements to the details. And certainly the department is willing to provide and able to provide the actual head count of each of those officer-involved shootings in the last 10 years. We carry these records, and they're also available online, LAPD online, and our annual 2022 use of force report. Next, in regards to personnel strength, there have been no change in the personnel strength from this period versus my last report. We stand at 8,991 sworn personnel. That's a underdeployment of 302. And our civilian professional staff stand at 2,617. That's an understaffing of 281 personnel. We did start on Monday our latest class, 28 new recruits, which while we saw a brief increase in the previous month's number of students that started the academy, I am disappointed to say that this past Monday, yesterday, we did not achieve the number. Our desire, as a reminder, is 60 personnel. We have seen, in looking at our month-over-month application status, we are seeing an increased interest in the number of applications as well as the number of background packages that are being prepared. So I'm hopeful that this month's performance is going to be an outlier, and that we're going to see more staffed and higher staffed numbers of qualified applicants and recruits as we move forward into the remainder of 2023. That concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Chief. And again, thank you for the update on the Southwest officer who was injured over the weekend. Certainly we all wish for a speedy and full recovery. With that, I'll ask other commissioners if they have any questions for the Chief. I'll start with Commissioner Briggs.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Briggs. Vice President Shields, any questions?
Yes, thank you, President Southers. Thank you, Chief, for mentioning the Above and Beyond ceremony. Watching some of the stories that were presented and the acts of bravery, I wish more of the public saw what was being displayed. And there are certain circumstances in which, officers are not able to save everyone. And I can imagine that has a very significant mental toll on them. Are there steps taken in those situations to really ensure that the officers have any kind of services needed to ensure they don't have PTSD or other kind of forms?
Yes, thank you. Their department has protocols in place that anytime an officer's come upon a traumatic injury resulting in the death of an individual, is that we have psychological services, our police psychologists that are available to do personal debriefings, as well as to debrief the larger working group. Those occur regularly across the organization, and as well as additional follow-ups that are available. And the outreach also includes the use of peer counselors that are especially trained in how to be active listeners and provide a supportive environment for officers as they work through and debrief from these events and understand the physical and mental toll it may be taking on them, and strategies and tactics and resources that are available to them. Lastly, we also have our clergy corps, which are volunteers that have received training and also support those from all faiths involved in our society to offer supportive services and guidance.
Thank you, Chief. And just one other question. This relates to the ongoing investigation at Mission. I know that's still ongoing. And can you talk about steps to ensure that there's, messaging within the department or training within the department of the need to make sure that body-worn videos are timely activated, and anything in connection with that?
Yes, so I received my latest brief yesterday, in which also members of Mr. Smith's office, the Office of Inspector General, attended for the details of that intensive investigation. We remain conducting both a criminal as well as administrative investigation into the actions of those involved, including the supervision of the unit. We've, simultaneously of that, and upon learning of this event, have taken steps to reinforce our expectations and the bright line of the requirement that all instances of detentions or stops of individuals be fully documented. Additionally, the use of the body-worn video camera system has been now in place since 2015. It does require an officer to activate that. It is not automatically activated when an officer responds to a pursuit or is in a matter of exiting his or her car and initiating a stop. It does require that. And what we have seen is over time, and we will continue to emphasize the obligation as well as the necessity, but also the benefit of ensuring that the body-worn video is activated as officers approach and deployed on any type of investigation or stop or other type of police action. Those efforts have been both in the sense of development of policy as well as procedures and training to include now including issuing body-worn videos to recruits so that muscle memory is developed as the officers go about their work. Additionally, we have marketing campaigns such as Tell Your Story, and demonstrated the positive attributes of having those body-worn videos activated as a means of demonstrating.
Chief, excuse me, I apologize. Sir, with the black T-shirt and the swastika, sit down. This is your first and only warning. Apologies, Chief, please continue.
Please. So in addition to the Tell Your Story, which is a sticker and markings that we say that we post around stations as well as in the vehicles themselves, and the training that we provide, is also systems of accountability and inspections and audits. The inspections and audits have been conducted over the years with increasing frequency as far as their design when we find shortfalls. We know that we collect tens of thousands of video clips regularly in the course of having thousands of officers deployed with body-worn video. The ability to audit and inspect every one of those is beyond our reach. However, we have on a systematic manner and will continue to develop means of which to conduct periodic inspections and audits to achieve, to determine compliance. And when shortfalls are found, we're taking corrective action, whether it be training or more punitive corrective action when repeated instances are found. And in any instance in which an officer willfully does not activate a body-worn video as a means of trying to obscure what their actions are, that is a disciplinary matter from the get-go. And there is absolutely no tolerance for such. Lastly, we're currently, as the Commission is aware, we're looking and researching with other major agencies across the country to understand in their body-worn video policy, procedures, training, and practices, how do they go about in understanding the ability to mine or research within body-worn episodes to identify misconduct, but also to identify practices that achieve good and improved outcomes or the other way. Lastly, this USC study that we're engaged in is yet another example of the department's efforts to see what we can learn from this and what it will identify as to shortfalls or areas that we can further improve. We also continue to research with yet another organization that we were just speaking about just yesterday, that we're looking to see if their work with looking at body-worn video clips and instances can give us additional insight. But let me close by saying I recognize in some earlier reports of an effort to perhaps identify that a recent officer-involved shooting in which there was a late activation had an association with what has been found in the Mission Area Gang Unit. Nothing can be further from the truth. Our initial review of that officer-involved shooting in which the late activations occurred, first, the late activations occurred during a sudden event in which an officer-involved shooting occurred where gunfire occurred. And officers activated their body-worn video within seconds of the event. And the 2-minute buffer, which the department established more than 8 years ago, understand and recognizes that there's instances in which an officer will or may inadvertently not activate their body-worn video. As a reminder to the Commission, when that body-worn video pilot began in 2014, that buffer was actually only 1 minute. And we worked to understand that it needed to be extended, and we worked with the manufacturer so it would be a full 2 minutes. That's meant to pick up the story, if you will, of the account of what happened when an officer inadvertently doesn't activate their video. But that's not to say that in the current state of affairs that we are allowing or acquiescing to repeated instances of officers failing to activate. And it was unfortunate that there was an effort or seemingly a desire to tie those two events together as to suggest that this is a more widespread problem. We will continue to work with all of our areas to continue to monitor the use of the body-worn, the appropriate use, and if we find instances in which there's confusion on the part of supervisors, or for that matter, command officers, as to their responsibilities and what I expect actions to be taken, that we'll make those adjustments as we go. Again, we're working closely with the Inspector General for that work, as well as with, I have to say, the Los Angeles Police Protective League, as they understand clearly that that body-worn video, that its tool is there to help and support officers as much as it is to provide the public with an accountability mechanism of what the officer's actions are.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Garcia.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a follow-up to what was mentioned in terms of mental health for officers. I'm hoping, actually I'm requesting for there to be an update or a presentation in a future meeting on like more detail of what you just shared in terms of like what's available, what are the policies around mental health debrief for officers, and really to help give us a full understanding of what that mental health looks like ongoing and after an incident.
Happy to do so. We actually are being visited today by some mental health professionals out of Texas to talk with us about their work in regards to mental health. The Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute is visiting for 2 days to look at our systems, but also for us to talk with them about both the mental health and well-being of the department and its employees, as well as the public in which we serve. So we look forward to providing that presentation with Dr. Dorian and with our mental evaluation unit.
Thank you, Chief. We'll now move on to item number 2 on the agenda, public comment. Madam Secretary, please read the name of the first speaker.
The first speaker is Mr. Herman.
I swear to tell nothing but the truth, so help me God on all items of non-agenda public comment, asshole. So may I speak now, Dick? So bringing people from mental health from Texas is not going to resolve the donation problem through the Los Angeles Police Foundation. Maybe you should get your own advice of mental health in California, you jackass. Different states practice different laws and liabilities when it comes to mental health. What jackass make a comment like that? And then regarding with the police report, no offense, Mr. Morris, the cat, meow. But I'm a dog, and out in the streets of Evergreen and Boyle Heights, it's not Mr. Kevin DeLeon's fault for all these gun shootings and violence. It's because people have restricted him from his committee and commission, and the fucking fool can't do his job. Now, if you can't do your job to stop 25 motherfucking shootings, how do you expect a dumb nigga like me to survive? Especially one like myself, a dog. Excuse me, but sir, I'm gonna read into the record Brandenburg versus Ohio, US 395 444 1969. And you need to keep your mouth shut so I could be heard. Because this is all about Brandenburg versus Ohio. It's a First Amendment protected free speech, and the president and that other clown under the attorney knows I'm correct politically.
Sir, you're
How
off topic.
far? How
Stay on
far?
topic or your climb will be terminated.
I'm doing my non-agenda public comment, motherfucker. So you just got to take it like it is. Tell him, Mr. Attorney, he's a violation of my civil rights.
You're off
No.
topic.
I'm gonna read Brandon versus Ohio, US 395 444 1969 because
Time is
it is
concluded.
constitutional.
Sir, this is your last warning. Stop using that word because it's insightful of violence. Stop using that word.
Sir, be seated. Sir, be seated.
The next speaker on Zoom is caller ending 1264. Caller 1264, you're on.
Hello.
Hi, what items would you like to
Hello?
speak on? Hello?
Can you hear me? Public comment and the chief's remarks.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that residents in my area, I'm in the Foothill Division, CD7, we do not have any authority to do anything. We have given you, the police officers, that authority, and they're not doing what they were hired to do. Even if you have ordinances that aren't being followed. I mean, these are things that prevent things from escalating. When you enforce these ordinances, they prevent other crimes. But for some reason, I don't know if you're part of some kind of political group or something, but you are not doing the job that you were hired to do. It's obviously showing up in our streets, in our schools, and it's creating mass chaos. So what we need to do is we need to enforce the ordinances. We need to create a safe environment for everybody and make sure that everybody that is here is everybody that's here follows the rules. The other
Sir,
thing I wanted to
Madam
bring up,
Secretary, will you
yes.
hold on the speaker? Sir in the black shirt, you may now leave the boardroom. Yes, I'm talking to you. With the black shirt with the swastika. Exit. Sergeant at Arms, please remove this individual from the room. Thank you. To our Zoom caller, my apologies. Please continue.
Yes. The thing is that the longer you allow people to lie around, to use drugs, to drink, to create a sort of harassment environment, you are just going to get more of that. But until you start following the ordinances that have already been out there, we are going to continue to have this environment. We have cartels that are here in the city of Los Angeles. Okay, they have a different mindset than people.
Madam Secretary, please read the name of the next speaker.
The next speaker, Michael Greenspan. He's not present. The next speaker, Goat Puppet. Also not present. Gary Ito, Gary C. Ito. Not present. Hamid Khan.
So Moore started talking about muscle memory, and the only muscle memory that the LAPD has is lies, conspiracies, scandals, shootings, murders, and that's the muscle memory that we were talking about, and that's what they're teaching. So this is just almost really pathetic. Well, it is pathetic. So there are a couple items on the agenda today, which obviously we will not have a chance to speak after the fact, and that's how it's been. One is about the drones, and let's just call them what they are. They are drones, regardless of SUAS and whatever acronyms they use. And one thing you wouldn't see in the report is that it's such a sanitized memo, if you will, and not just a report, is to speak about what we call mission creep. That how over time, since 2018, 2019, the expansion is very slowly taking place. LAPD uses the language of ever evolving, and I'm quoting that directly from their own reports. I mean, to the extent that in this last budget, and I'm looking at this one box that the LAPD had in their budget presentation, that give department-wide crowd control and crowd management training, specialized unit training with partners on counterterrorism training. So yes, their claim would be that Olympics is coming, World Cup soccer is coming, so crowd control, maybe acts of terrorism, and then we need to do that. But it is an ever-evolving mission creep about which we saw during George Floyd uprising and all those protests and marches and rallies as well. And besides the MCIT and hazmat and traffic monitoring and everything else. So things that we had said in our report back in 2014 and kept on saying is exactly the template that they are following. The other one, the report is about the public records, which again is a memo and an audit. And when you look at that report compared to the reality that Stop LAPD Spying Coalition has seen, that this is the most bullshit, absolutely bullshit report that you will see. You know, it is rife with lies, and that's what it says, that, you know, we adhere to the 10 days, 14 days, but we've sent a couple letters in the past to LAPD about their constant claim of this term unusual circumstances, right? And if they were following the rules and they were following the laws of the state of California, then why would we have sued them 7 times since 2016? And we have won every lawsuit. Right. Even the more recent one, where we published Watch the Watchers, and they were forced to release photos of Ben Camacho. And what do? They sue us in return. This is something of the right of the people of Los Angeles to know who these individuals are, who are going to cause them harm, and then they turn around and sue us.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, please read the name of the next speaker.
Next, we have Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's report, agenda items, and public comment.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay, first, I do appreciate Chief's report, and he is right on. And I support agenda items 3A and 3B. And in public comment, I guess I will never understand why some of the other public comments have to use profanity. Apparently, they were not raised to show respect in public. So anyway, I hope everybody stays safe and healthy, and I yield the rest of my time.
The next speaker, please, Jonathan Foster.
Good morning, Jonathan Foster. Start with this, get the volume up here.
Our effort is to hear voices.
See if I can do that again.
Our effort is to hear voices.
So I had wondered, you want to hear voices? I remember Briggs saying we don't answer questions. And I was also wondering, do you hear voices? I was wondering if you hear voices, buddy.
But the time, 90 minutes had gone by very quickly, so obviously I know all of you.
90 minutes have gone by very quickly. We're only getting 45 minutes. Why aren't we getting every minute we need? You could people have nothing to do today but listen to the public. That's what this is about. Next one.
Very well.
Hearing voice, yeah, you're not listening to questions. Here we go.
More than 18 years. DA Gascon and I have known each other for 2 decades, and there's instances and policies within his office that I disagree with, and
So y'all, again, know each other. Y'all know each other. Klinkenbrummer was shot dead. This is on Eileen Decker, because I told Eileen Decker how this could be prevented, and she's so powerful, she knows everybody too. And you're all stupid. I already told you how stupid you are. I know it's excellent service. There's some good things going on, but this guy got shot dead. Okay, and I've been telling you people how to prevent this, and Eileen Decker didn't act. Screw you. You got Briggs, right? Your cronies, huh, Briggs? With your alignment, allegiance, and alliance buddies, right? And I talked about the OIS stuff, and I went over these stats, and some days and some things look pretty good. I want to do more of these years and come up. But the idea is here, there are over 80 municipalities and police departments here, and they're all killing people. So the numbers are way higher than just what the LAPD does. In the county of Los Angeles, the police are shooting a lot of people, actually. There's a problem with this. And all OIS needs a blood test. The officer needs a blood test every time they shoot. And And as I support the police department, we have to do what Illuminati Beck said, which you have to prosecute officers. So Here's another one, some
Many
stuff.
times we have these closed sessions, and during the closed sessions, there's no secret that we adjudicate cases.
Some means of attempting to redirect this organization, perhaps this commission, from its true pursuit.
During the closed sessions, there's no secret that we adjudicate cases. Either the training's wrong.
Our effort is to hear voices.
Yeah, the training is wrong on so many areas, which is dealing with the police and the public. Now, there's not enough time to speak, Southers. I don't have enough time to speak.
Thank you for your comment. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Next, we have Andrew Grabner. Andrew Grabner, you're on.
All items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
All right, starting off with the chief's report. The chief's report should be limited to 3 minutes at every meeting. Sorry about the noise. Since you hold this at the same time as City Council, I have to do the meeting from City Hall. Yeah, the chief's report should be limited to 3 minutes. If the chief's report exceeds 3 minutes, we should be allowed to match whatever time the chief takes. Yeah, I'm noticing on the chief's report, he's spending a lot of time, talking about in extreme detail about how the injured cop is doing and such. But you never afford this kind of, thoughtfulness or anything when the cop shoots someone. It's just, we're lucky if we even know the name of who was shot. The chief was attacking members of the public during his chief's report today. So I just like to say that, you all treat death as like a statistic, like when the cop shoots someone, that doesn't actually make it better, prove something or anything when, the cops shoot one less person than they did last year, the same amount of people as they did last year or whatever. They've still shot so many people. And this is all just part of the, of Michael Moore's leadership. But it's not just him. That's just the cops in general. That's just, but Moore is especially bad. All right, let's see. We got the consent agenda. I see on the consent agenda, you're destroying records again. People actually might want to request those records, but that's the whole point. You don't want to be as transparent. You don't want to be transparent. You want to just destroy records. They're not even that old. They're like from a year or two ago, and you're already destroying them. The LAPD should not be getting any donations. And fuck the LA Police Foundation. General comments. Again, and also I wanted to talk about the records, the CPRA thing. So let's talk about how the LAPD has done with my CPRA requests this year. When I requested body cam footage, they claimed it would violate my privacy to give me my, give me the records of them going out violating my rights. So I don't know how you can violate someone's privacy by giving them the, the body cam footage of their own interaction with the cops. I don't need my own, I'm not violating my own privacy. That doesn't even make sense. Yeah.
The next speaker, Akili.
I almost said bye-bye, Keely, to you, but Keely, Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. So we shut down the mission division, no accountability. Crime is down, 27 people have been shot. No accountability. We are going to Texas. I'm not so sure what we can learn from Texas. I don't want Texas as an example for what we can do. Texas is a state that is literally banning and trying to erase black people. I don't know what we can learn from them except what not to do. And then finally, if you have no responsibility, no accountability, and no consequence, that's a recipe for corruption. And that's exactly what we have. And I have been unable to figure out what it is the five of you all can do that gets to those three things. Who's responsible? Who's accountable? And what consequence is exerted for when you kill 27, when you shoot 27 people and 17 of them die? All of that either is in policy, and if it is, then that policy is corrupt and unnecessary, and we don't need it in y'all fronting. Or something is wrong. If it's something is wrong, who's responsible? How is there accountability, and what consequence is there for the wrongness? That's what we have been coming here talking about for many years. And without that, you simply are at best forming some kind of functionary position sitting there and listening to this information. But if and until you close a division, you spent millions of dollars on it, but you find that there's something wrong there. That's all right, let's just move on. 27 people have been shot, 17 killed. That's all right, let's move on. That's why you are not trusted. That's why you're going to have a difficult time recruiting officers, because people like us are going to continue to ask people like you to do the responsible, accountable, and consequential thing. Thank you. Fire Chief Moore. That is all.
Thank you.
Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
The chief's report, public comment, and agenda items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Thank you. First, I'd like to say on the chief's report, it was good to hear about the 2023 Above and Beyond Medal of Valor and Purple Heart recipients. If there's a way to maybe show that on the website, the department website, it would be good for the public to see that, as Vice President Shields mentioned. And I believe I heard that there were posthumous awardees, and we should know their names, and they should be honored here publicly. For the sergeant that was hit by a DUI driver in Southwest Division, prayers for her recovery. Her name was not mentioned. I'm not sure if that was because he wanted to protect the identity of the sergeant, but it's a rough, tough job, and we pray for all our officers who are out there protecting and serving and risking their lives on a daily basis. With suicide prevention, very important. I think that Vice President Shields mentioned this maybe in a previous meeting also. I know she's very concerned about the officers' mental health and well-being. I think that every officer, especially patrol officers, should be mandated and required to check in with behavioral sciences. That way there would be no stigma or concern about, well, I don't want to look like I need help. We know the psychology of police officers. They're used to giving help, not asking for it. So perhaps you could do maybe every 3 years, every 5 years, whatever the behavioral sciences system workload can accommodate. But if a person doesn't really feel like they need it, they go in, they check in for 5-10 minutes, and they're out. But it should be a mandatory system. That could be the legacy for this issue and for the police commissioners who are there now. The clergy corps was mentioned. It's sad to say we never see them, or almost never. So perhaps at the beginning of a police commission meeting, you could have a member of the clergy corps open in prayer. I also think there should be a mission statement, if there isn't one, for the police commission, so people understand what the police commission is and what your role is. It should be read at every meeting. I also will recommend the Pledge of Allegiance, because we are American and we come under the U.S. Constitution. And I think that would be a good example to young people and the public at large. So there are a lot of things that need to be done at the LAPD. I hope that you actually support the officers with community policing. We need to know about the meetings and events before they happen, so more people can participate. The meetings really should not be at 9:30 on Tuesday morning. Rotate them, the time and the place, so more of the public can actually participate, not just professional activists that lie about the LAPD. The LAPD is a noble organization, but it comes from the human race. Thank you and God bless.
The next speaker, Gina Viola.
another week. All items, yeah. So you open this meeting talking ad nauseum about the rules and decorum in this room. Why can't you put just a modicum of that energy into oversight of this department? You don't ask that many questions, you don't give that many rules when police kill people. You know, this new rule of no standing, do you know that that's ableist? If somebody has a bad back and they want to come and participate in these meetings and they need to stand, you're telling them that that's not a possibility. And you're doing it specifically to limit parents' ability to be able to come in and give comment. Because you know if you have a small child here, you are going to have to walk around with them. So this is directed at one person only, and it's despicable, and it has to stop. You had to go to great lengths to point out a September spike in shootings because crime is down. 55 years ago, Malcolm X gave a whole speech on police brutality and the role that the media plays in what the numbers that you give to the media so that the white people believe that you need to go in and be oppressive and tyranny to the black community. This is the song remains the same. We're talking decades ago, and I just watched you do it this morning. This morning. It's just ridiculous. 28 recruits. Who wants to be a cop? Your cops kill each other. Your cops terrorize community members. They stalk each other. They rape each other. Nobody wants to be a cop anymore. It's scary. That's the culture of this department. See, it's coming home to roost now. You thought you were just going to be able to have it happening out on the neighborhoods and communities where you called the shots. But it's coming home to roost. They're eating each other now. That's how despicable and dangerous and rotten this is to the core. We're not asking for reform. We're way past reform. We've had reforms. You want to do the decade game again? We had reforms in the 60s. We had reforms in the 90s. Reforms don't help us. 2020 and the backlash is this. Things are worse. You're killing more black people since 2020. You are trying to send a clear message. Stay in your lanes. We remain on top. We're not here for it anymore. We're not. Now the world sees what only a small percentage of people who were terrorized by you and this department for centuries, now the world sees. Cops lie, and it starts with you. Cops lie all the time. You just lied to us today, and you'll probably spend the rest of your day lying.
Next, we have Philip Tabby.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Good morning, Commission. Fire Chief Moore. There's no other way to put it. Scandal after scandal keep plaguing this department because of him. And it's becoming obvious members of command staff are becoming complacent because they don't want to be smithed. Mike, you promoted a lieutenant to captain who served a search warrant for a weapons violation involving a child. You promoted Corey Polka, who is feeding information on a crime, and then you couldn't wait to tweet about his promotion. You promoted a captain to commander who perjured himself on a federally ordered moratorium to overturn a motion that's related to BLM. But you demoted the captain who refused to perjure themselves. And now you promote a person to captain of a Valley Bureau station who you covered up the felony they committed? But there's more to come on that soon. Mike, you promote those who commit crimes or have brushes with the law, and then you get drunk with them. Is it true you were on another credit union junket this past weekend at Terra Mia with the family of that person you promoted who you covered up their crime? And when will you start paying for your own trips? Mike, you lied about the body-worn situation. I do believe 2 other commissioners also knew about the body-worn problem. Oh, there's more to come on that as well. Is it true, Briggs, your partner at your firm is Kamala Harris's husband? But Commission, you should ask Moore what he knew about the body-worn. Ask Liz Rhodes what she knew also. Commission, you need to get to the bottom of this. Inspector General, you should also speak to Smith. Mike, Either you knew about the body-worn situation or you didn't. Either way, it shows your incompetence. You have turned a well-respected department into a political circus. You have deputy chiefs lying to the people. You have assistant chiefs planting air tags to track a woman. They call him Air Brada. And you're the one working to cover that up while he sits at home receiving a paycheck, while officers who refuse to take an experimental shot are fired. Mike, you're a narcissist who you get mad when people call out your lies. I even think he believes his own lies. You promote the wrong side of the law. You started your second term by lying, by saying you're not going to receive a pension bonus, but the lies just keep coming. If officers don't fall under your standards or even city council member standards, you have them tuned up. Mike, I'm looking forward to a meeting with the newly promoted commander tomorrow. I sure hope it's positive, and not you trying to have me tuned up, because that won't work, Jack. You work for us, not the other way around. Fire Chief Moore, fire Liz Rhodes, and God bless the LAPD. I yield the rest of my time.
The next speaker, Megan.
The original purpose for policing was to help white people control black people, to track, and get into that part, to track down enslaved peoples who ran away and return them to the people who bought them and wanted to exploit them for their labor. After the 13th Amendment outlawed involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, the job of the police was to find reasons to arrest black people so they could still be legally exploited for their labor by white capitalists. We see the reason now and the history behind why today black people are disproportionately killed, surveilled, and arrested by police, and why me growing up was taught to trust police, taught to believe in our justice system. It supposedly works for me. It's important to my investment in this work and the work of abolition to continue to understand why policing is harmful to me and to all of us. I run a small tango dance studio in Inglewood, and I've been in the tango scene since 2015. And since that time, I've witnessed both locally and from afar several women coming forward to report that they had been assaulted. This is separate from just, run-of-the-mill harassment that I've experienced personally and heard about from other women. That's too numerous and frequent to count. The tango scene's not different from the world at large. This is true. Rasha, you know many women who have been assaulted in all sorts of situations, I'm sure. It's common knowledge for sexual assault survivors that going to the police is useless. Statistics bear this out. The one person I know who did go to the police when her tango teacher groomed her as a teenager and then ultimately raped her in her home, she ultimately dropped the charges because of the stress of having to see her rapist again and because her lawyer advised her that a conviction was unlikely anyway. As soon as those charges were dropped, the tango community at large took that as a sign that nothing had happened. Because police are falsely held up as arbiters of justice and is responsible for community safety, and because you suck up all the money from every other city service, this woman's called a liar, her accusations were dismissed, she was driven out of the dance community, and her abuser enjoys a career teaching and dancing all over the world. And why don't women want to go to police? Not just because you're abysmal at actually addressing crime, but because police culture is proudly misogynist. Al Labrado, one of the highest ranking individuals in your department, felt perfectly fine stalking his female subordinate who he was dating. Maybe it's because there's no real consequences for that behavior. Officers caught having sex with their employees aren't fired, they're just relocated. He continues to collect a paycheck as we speak. In the last few months since I've been here, officers have been found guilty of sexual assault, statutory rape, and child molestation, and none of you asked any questions about any of that.
Thank you for your comment. Madam Speaker, please name the next speaker.
Next, we have T on Zoom.
Hello?
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
First off, power and strength to the families impacted by police violence. More needs to go. I encourage y'all to sign the petition that's out there. we're just tired of your botched up statistics talking about people y'all have shot like they're just numbers. We're tired of your propaganda. We're tired of your lies. We're tired of some failed leadership. You know, you need to go. And this commission is no better. Y'all are complicit in the police murder and the abuse and harassment of Black and brown folks in our communities. And y'all continue this facade. You know, this commission that's supposed to be an oversight board, and this is supposed to be for the public, you know, and you're continually trying to silence the voices of Black and brown folks, you know, when they come to speak truth to power, and you allow like a lot of just a circus to continue here. As far as the agenda items, no on destroying public records. I mean, what is going on with that? That, you know, you're trying to basically, you know, sweep things under the rug, and that can't work. No on drones and more, you know, surveillance on the people. That can't work. You know, overall, we need resources for our communities, and y'all keep eating our money. You know, you keep asking for money. It's really a bad idea to have people from Texas come and talk to you about mental health. Why would you do that? Y'all are real concerned about the mental health of officers that shoot and kill our folks out here. Maybe, you know, we should prevent that in the first place. And then you wouldn't need mental health service for that. Maybe y'all should invest in mental health services for the community of the people y'all are killing because they have mental health issues. And if y'all stop eating the money out of our general fund of our budget, our city's budget, maybe people with mental health issues could get the services and the housing they actually need, and you wouldn't be out there killing them in the first place. Like, nothing y'all do makes sense. And everything, the community we presented to you does make sense, but you refuse to do it. We're the ones that keep us safe. We need to abolish the police because there's no reforming it. We need community-based safety programs that are not law enforcement.
The next speaker, Michelle Dumont.
Excuses, 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 excuses. That's all he has for you. And you're not holding them accountable. That's what we and you are supposed to be here for. Accountability. And you people are asking questions that indicate you have no clue what this police department is about. Get up to speed. Get up to speed. This whole thing about body-worn cameras, he can't even get them to put on seatbelts. There was a report that all these accidents, they didn't wear seatbelts. Oh, we're going to get them to wear seatbelts. You can't train people to do what you want them to do. They're already trained deeply by this whole process. And all you are doing is sucking up the money of this city. Every single penny. And you're in the throes of this police foundation, which is disgusting. They have you by the throats, you guys. They're controlling you and they're controlling this city. And no accountability, just excuses. That's all they have. And it keeps going on over and over and over and over again. Drones, we're only going to use them for certain things. Oh, yes. And then we have this mission creep. More uses. I was also really struck by this discussion you're going to have about a police museum. The only police museum I want is a police museum that says the police in LA are gone, and this is their real history, not their fake history, their real history. Their real history of being threats to the community, of creating chaos in the community, of creating crime, and of committing crimes with no accountability. You know, you are completely failures here. This is a complete failure. You don't even try to be accountable or make them accountable. More killings all the time, more shootings, but crime is down. And people don't want to be police. You know, get the picture, friends. It's not working at all. It never has worked. It was never better. This city has a horrible history of policing. Get up to speed, folks.
Next, we have Angelina.
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
So we want more police, not less. I'm speaking as a mother and I'm representing hundreds of thousands of other people just like me. They don't have time to call in, but I have many friends at church, at my kids' school, and we talk about these issues all the time. And I hope you are hearing our voices, even though we might be outnumbered by some extremists there. But please listen to common sense. Please listen from a mother's heart that we respect police. Maybe not every police officer is perfect, but for the most part, they're really good people that I've come across at Foothill Division, for example. And we're happy. I'm so happy when I see an officer patrolling our area, especially in Sunland, Tahunga. This is the area where our kids go to school. They play in the parks. We want safe streets. We want safe homes. We want safe businesses, and we want our churches safe. So we want more police patrolling our area. If other people don't want it, send them our way. We'll gladly take them at Foothill Division. We do need a faster response time, especially for 911. 3 minutes, for an emergency call to get answered is unacceptable. Again, the front desk at Foothill Division, we need that manned more. So when people are calling, somebody actually picks up. And the non-emergency line is 45 minutes to 1 hour for somebody
Madam
to pick
Secretary,
it
can
up.
you hold the clock, sir? You're disturbing the meeting. Allow this woman who's on Zoom and called in to speak. Thank you. Ma'am, continue.
Okay, so we want a stronger police presence and faster response time. We are in dangerous times and it's going to get worse, especially with the $0 bail new schedule that's going to be coming out. So listen to our voices and please put value into our voices. And we want more public safety. And there are dangerous people out there. I disagree with the new commissioner, the one from Homeboy, who I think he said something about everyone is good. But there are some seriously evil people out there, and any officer can tell you that. So I hope that doesn't influence new policies that are going to be put in place, because there are evil people out there, and we do need police to restrain that evil. And when any of us need help, we're going to call 911. We're not going to call Ghostbusters. Who are we going to call? It's going to be 911. So we need more help. If others don't want it, we'll take it. And we're in an upside down world where good is bad and bad is good. The police are bad, criminals are good. But God says, woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and shrewd in their own sight. That's Isaiah 5:20. And I do agree with the previous caller about enforcing ordinances such as 4118. And we need to ticket more reckless drivers. So we would please ask for more police presence in the Foothill area to ticket these reckless drivers. Thank you.
The next speaker, Michael Williams.
I ain't got no questions. I got some answers. So I didn't even say anything. You started my time. It's okay. So I want to say first, I have to make an attraction to Michael Moore. I accused him of saying something about 14-year-olds having sex with cops being consent. And that wasn't him, that was Beck. And I misread. So because I have more moral character than Michael Moore, I will say that was a mistake and apologize, because unlike Michael Moore, I apologize when I say something that is incorrect. The next thing, though, let's talk about what Michael Moore did say. Out in your lobby, you have a picture for Hispanic History Month of Lillian Carreza, right? Lillian Carreza. Did you know that Lily Carreza is the woman that had her picture altered, put on a naked body, and sent around to the police department? Well, when she went to talk to this fool and asked him to put out a message to the whole department saying, hey, this is fake, don't share this, this is a fake picture, he refused. You know what logic he made for that refusal? He said that he feared that if they told them, if he put out that it was fake and that they shouldn't share it, more people would share it. It would go viral. Which doesn't make any sense, because why would someone share a picture more when they know it's fake than when it's viral? It's also interesting that you know your department is such a cesspool that if you inform them that there's a fake picture of a woman who is a part of the department, your officers will share it more. Now that's one incident, right? That's one incident, right? Let's talk about Sergeant Darcy French, who also was sexually harassed in the department last year. She went to higher ups and tried to report how much sexist propaganda was being spread across the LAPD in her office. When she did so, she was then harassed by other officers online, including making references about gang raping her. And when she reported that to the higher ups, she was removed, was forced to transfer, and then was threatened to be suspended twice. Did you hear about that one, Chief Moore? Did you know about that? This is the guy y'all keep propping up. He allows sexual harassment to go on and then uses those women who were sexually harassed by his officers as PR. That's this guy.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, next speaker.
Next speaker, Jaretta Randall.
And this will be the final speaker. We've exceeded 45 minutes, and all people who turned in speaker cards today were heard. Ma'am, go ahead.
The police in my area and a homeless man, is not so much that he's homeless, it's his behavior. And the response that I'm getting from the police, they're telling me that they're shorthanded because Black Lives messed up them getting their raises. That's what they told me. And then they told me that the city of LA told them hands off when it comes to them doing anything about this particular person, setting fires, throwing dead possum on property. One officer told me that if I didn't like what was going on, maybe I should leave the community, move out of the community. Also, I've been there 20 years. I worked 3 jobs to get this place, and this person has been evicted by the courts. I've showed them the paperwork, and also he puts a boombox right under my bedroom window and blasts it. They come, tell him just to turn it down, laughing and joking with him in Spanish. As soon as they leave, he turns it up louder. I've been calling many times, have incidents reports. When I went to the station, I have to stand outside because they locked the door. They only have been only letting one person at a time because they said they're short-handed. So I just came this morning to see what I could do about this person. You know, if maybe, I don't know if you have any input or not of that, but I really appreciate it. I have to give credit to Officer Cook, who's in my area. She's new and she has just been coming, but this man has done everything possible he could do. I have a list, but I'm not gonna go through the whole list because it may take too long. I have court papers. I've showed the police department where the sheriff came out, evicted this guy. He won't leave. He said that's his neighborhood, that's his alley, and no, I won't use the word N-word. Gonna tell him what to do, and fuck the police. So thank you very much for your time.
Madam, if you would talk to that gentleman right there, he will take your information and we will work on that problem.
Thank you very much.
I apologize for your experience.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. We will now move to item agenda 3, consent agenda items. Item A is the department's report. Are there any questions or comments on item A? Commissioner Garcia, any questions on A? Okay. Are there any questions or comments on item B?
I had one question for item B.
Vice President Shields, go ahead.
This is the destruction of obsolete, original, and duplicative records. And I wanted to know who has confirmed whether there's any Public Records Act requests to ensure that there are no pending Records Act requests for any of these documents. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Elena Asukan. I'm the commanding officer of Records and Identification, and I am the records manager for the police department. All the boxes that are requested to be destroyed for obsolete records, they have all been verified through the divisions as well as my staff, and we'll go through to ensure that they are in compliance with any Senate bills or state laws that mandate certain records not to be destroyed.
And that would include Public Records Act requests?
Correct, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. That's the only question I had.
Commissioner Garcia, questions? With that, I would take I'm going to move that we approve item A, that we approve the department's report and accept the donations. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. On item B, department's report, I'd move that we approve the department's report and transmit to the city clerk. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. We'll now move on to item agenda 4, regular agenda items. We have a presentation and discussion from the Los Angeles Police Museum. Thank you for being here this morning, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Chief and Police Commissioners. My name is Robert Allen.
Can you turn on your mic?
Can you turn on your mic?
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning, Chief Moore and Police Commissioners. My name is Robert Alaniz, and I'm Board Chair for the Police Museum. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for this.
I'm sorry, sir, excuse me. We're going to have one person speak at a time. These individuals have come to do a presentation. I'm going to ask you to be respectful and allow them to make their presentation. If you can't be respectful, you will be warned and you will be removed from the room. Sir, I'm asking you to cease and desist. They are not. I'm saying that these people are going to do their presentation. One person's going to speak at a time. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Anyway, thank you for this. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for this opportunity to give a presentation on the museum and the things that we do. The LAPD, it does have a rich and positive history. As you know, it started under the King of Spain, He established the city, and during that time period, he also established rules and regulations for for the police department. Since then, we've been operating under 3 different governments till this day. And as a museum, our mission is to educate the community and the children in specific on our history.
Sir, this is your first and last warning to stop disrupting the meeting. The black T-shirt. Sir, please leave the boardroom. You're disrupting the meeting. Leave the boardroom, or you will be escorted from the boardroom. If you'd like to get on the agenda, there's a protocol for that. This is not your time. Leave the room. Sergeant at Arms, please remove this gentleman from the room. Thank you. My apologies. On behalf of the commission, thank you for coming today. You're welcome to start from the beginning, and we really appreciate your presentation.
Thank you, sir. So our mandate is to educate the public and our youth on the history of the city through the perspective of the police department. So community relations in LAPD did start with King Carlos III when he established the rules and regulations of the city and how do we manage our policing. And so one of the things that was posed to them, which is very relevant today, is the treatment of the indigenous Indians, which he stated there are a different race and color and also language, and teaching them his rules and regulations. And so when it came to treating the Indians, he said that he wanted them to be treated gently and with an extra care. And why? And he stated because he wants them to understand that it's not through hatred or self-interest that motivates our laws, rather the fair dispensation of justice. And that was the beginning of our community relations in Los Angeles and with the police. And I think to this day that we are trying to meet that standard. And I think that that's a great way to set the tone for the department. It still carries on to this day. And that's the story that we want to bring about. It's not a perfect story, but in it, we have a lot of things that we can learn from the past. I also want to invite the commissioners to some of our events and see what we do. We do have an event coming up pretty soon, which we can disseminate later. We'd like to invite you to. And then with that, before I turn it over to Erica, our executive director, I just want to say, having just completed 40 years with the police department, I want to thank each and every one of you for the great work you guys are doing, your dedication and your leadership to make and preserve this department to be the best department is what I admire from every one of you, from Chief Moore on to Earl Southers. So thank you very much. And with that, I give it to Erica.
Good morning, everybody. I especially want to thank President Southers for this invitation. This is an uncharted territory for the Police Museum that's been in existence since 2002. And many do not know of our existence, but now we are making everybody aware that we do have a place in the old Highland Park Police Station. If I may go back one slide so that we can go over some organizational history. I am proud to say that we have a deep partnership with Chief Moore and his command staff and their continued push to preserve department history. Thank you, Chief Moore, for being one of our considered partners. The police station has been in existence since 1925, and it was an old police station all the way up until 1983 when it was decommissioned. And the museum and the Historical Society was established after some retired officers saw the historical significance of the preservation of the building on York. The museum is housed in an old police station, and we are a nonprofit organization. So we are a private entity that houses LAPD artifacts. And as my chairman had stated, it is our mission to educate the public surrounding LAPD history, whether that's positive and negative. We are not afraid of those deeper conversations because we are a public entity that serves our community. Next slide, please. The mission and vision is to preserve, interpret, collect the rich history of LAPD. And the vision and the way that it's executed is through engaging exhibits and relevant programming that educates our communities. Next slide. So our service is in fact to both LAPD, our major stakeholders, the 9,000 now, sir, 8,000 plus sworn of the civilian staff and the sworn staff. But also in this capacity, we do serve our local communities, nationwide communities, and global. We've seen every department come from Australia, Singapore, you name it, we've seen those communities come through our doors. So we are in fact a bridge that serves as a place of learning for our communities, both with LAPD and other institutions. Next slide, please. And we do. We have an outstanding youth program effort, especially this year. We are extraordinarily proud to partner with Jane Goodall. Dr. Jane Goodall is a world-renowned scientist, global anthropologist, and a peacemaker. Her Roots and Shoots program actually has its roots here with LAPD. Sitting next to me is one of those founding members of Roots and Shoots. Our chair, Bob Alanis, was a sergeant over in our community relations sections over in Southwest. Am I right with that? And there, Jane Goodall just happened to partner up and meet both Sergeant Alanis at the time and our board treasurer, Stephen Margolis, where they forged a relationship in teaching young people how to be change agents in their communities. Since then, this program has gone global, and we are proud to again say that Jane Goodall will be honored at one of our special events, and she will be helping us relaunch this important initiative to have these change agents come through the museum and be global icons in their own right. If people wish to see change, they have to be the change, and the museum is happy to facilitate that educational program. Before the pandemic, Together We Are Strong was a concerted effort on behalf of our chair, Alanis. He put together a small group of students, cadets, and local Northeast community people who wanted to partner with our community relations office. And fortunately, we have somebody on staff who's talented both in the arts and in programming for youth. They wrote a song together, which is on YouTube, called Together We Are Strong. And they performed that at one of our award galas. So you can see the museum is very active in our community and our efforts to reach our youth. Next slide, please. Our exhibits, they do carry much of LAPD history, but they also carry the darker side of the city of Los Angeles. We know that the North Hollywood shootout occurred. We know that the Onion Field occurred, where the execution of 2 officers just happened in a Onion Field just outside of Bakersfield. We have vintage police vehicles, firearms, uniforms, badges, all that are permanent loan from the department. And while they may seem as benign items to some, next slide, please. We have more important and more time-stamped things, such as our commission. Our commission is such a huge part of Los Angeles city history. We have the Bachman Gallery, which was generously donated by the Bachman family, and it was installed in 2008 and has relatively remained static. So that is one important piece to our museum, and it's telling of how important the Police Commission is to our history. Next slide, please. We have some facts, and I'm very happy to share with all of you that the facts here are our most to-date statistics. We have our 501c nonprofit status organization. We are completely independent from Los Angeles Police Department. We have 14 board of directors, 1 executive staff member, 3 support staff, and countless volunteers and docents that are the heartbeat of the museum that are able to create an experience for visitors. We are a membership model, meaning that you must voluntarily elect to be a member of the museum. We do not rely on public funds whatsoever. We also have regular memberships should the general public decide to be a member of the museum, just as every other museum has a membership model for their revenue sustainability. We have 1,700 active officers who are on our payroll department voluntary contribution system, where they elect to give the museum $2 per paycheck. We also receive major gifts from private and corporate donors, and we have our special events as well that are another source of revenue. Year to date, we have welcomed 4,031 visitors. We average about 447 visitors per month. And I enjoy reporting that most of our tours are public group tours from anywhere from schools, senior citizen groups, boys and girls clubs, and various other clubs throughout the community. And many of our community relations offices also bring their public citizen classes toward the museum. We also see other law enforcement agencies totaling approximately 90% of visitors. Roughly 10% of active LAPD are our only visitors. Next slide, please. We have major projects. As we stated, we are an old building. The building was built in 1925, and with it comes some significant impact on the infrastructure and its age and its preservation. We are a historical landmark. And of the major projects, we have a carport in which we need to revamp and revitalize to preserve our cars in our collection fleet. We have exhibition redesign also on the docket. We have a membership campaign and our 5-year strategic plan, which we are looking forward to. Next slide, please. And with that, I'd like to touch a little bit more on the history of LAPD. And a generation which ignores its history has no past and no future. And in my time at the museum, I know that there is a concerted effort, both with Chief Moore's office and the commission, for us to take a deeper look at our history. Next slide, please. What many do not know about the Los Angeles Police Department is something that we are extraordinarily proud of. Robert Stewart was the first African-American police officer to be hired by LAPD. He was a slave and was freed and elected to come to Los Angeles and put on a badge and protect and serve his community. His extensive story is in our museum, and one we are constantly touting and sharing about the forerunner that LAPD has been when it has come to our communities and hiring. The one that I am extraordinarily proud of, being the first Mexican-American female in my role, in my position at the museum, is Josephine Serrano Collier. She was the first Mexican-American Hispanic female to be hired by the Los Angeles Police Department. We also have Juan Carrillo, who was one of the first chiefs, and the legendary Chief William Parker. We could go on and on about many people and the leadership that we have seen at LAPD and the historical impact that they've had on the department and the city of Los Angeles. Next slide, please. What we also house at the museum are major moments that changed policing forever. I know we are listening to many stories that have the dark side of our history in the city of Los Angeles, and we all shared in that darkness and those dark times together. And again, of those are the Onion Field, the North Hollywood shootout, and the SLA incident. All of them changed policing forever. Crime changes policing forever. And how we share that story is important at the museum. Next slide, please. So it's important for us at the museum to have this understanding of organizational knowledge and organizational history. History is a useful tool in teaching and examining what works, what doesn't, competencies, business models, and how it impacts our organizations. In the context of the museum and the LAPD, we hope that in the future, it's going to have a significant impact on those modalities. Organizational culture is impacted by history, positive and negative. It provides context to adversity, how it's addressed, and it also provides context to leadership. It provides context on how we can do things better. The museum is source material. We have everything on hand to conduct concerted, well-researched, and sourced research. So we are ready and willing to provide that. Some anecdotal observations for knowledge for the Police Commission, which I'd like to bring to your attention. Upon division visits and roll calls, and in LAPD headquarters social media poll post results, the knowledge and the awareness surrounding the museum is very little. Of about 10,000 polled, only 3,000 were aware that there is a museum. Those are significant numbers to us. And again, anecdotally, when I personally visit divisions and I am in roll calls, only half of my room knows that there is a museum, and those are our own officers. So this is for everybody's knowledge again, to understand that we need to raise this awareness. If we are to teach both the positive and negative side, we need to have a full awareness, not just partial, of our existence here at the museum. Next slide, please. So our vision with the future is to establish a strong relationship with the Board of Commissioners. As I stated before, we've never done this before. In the 20+ years as a museum, we've largely been on our side of Northeast, just doing our job, keeping the doors open. But in a continued and a concerted effort, we are looking to innovatively and collaboratively integrate our history into recruit training and visits, which I'm working with Dr. Southers on. And we hope that we can have the commission's support in the redesign and the Commissioner's Gallery to highlight the significant impact all of you have had in the past and currently have on the city of Los Angeles. Our intentional membership cultivation is in partnership with both LAPD and our general community. We want our communities to come in and ask those tough questions because we're able to answer some of them in the context of our historical research. We want to drive our communities, both sworn and regular public, for a place of gathering and learning. We want to build realistic, actionable, and well-prioritized strategic plans that hears both the voice of the department and our communities. Next slide, please. We want to leverage city partnerships. And while many may ask why a museum exists, museums play an extraordinary role on the social environments that we live in. And I mean this in a macro sense. Cultural institutions have an enormous impact on our local economy. They create jobs and they re-inject money back into our neighborhoods. Just last year, despite the economic downturn, $14 billion was reinvigorated and re-injected back into our local economies from museums and cultural institutions alone. The investment and actually visiting museums, something that everybody can do, has a significant impact. And how we continue to tell our stories is going to be really contingent upon that community participation. This will be able to help us to serve as a bridge. We're going to be able to use LAPD organizational history as a tool. It'll be a bridge for understanding, historical significance, and context to social issues. We will create relevant programming in addressing these and officer needs. And we're going to hope to develop a deep understanding and relationships with both our communities and our officers. And when I mean relationships, I mean real relationships. Not just transactional, not just thank you for your time and let me punch your ticket. So that is our mission and vision for the museum moving forward. And hopefully, with the support of the commission, we can continue to do our existing work, but collaboratively work to some innovative work as well. Thank you.
Executive Director Arias, thank you so much for this presentation. And Sergeant Alanis, thank you for your years of service. The Executive Director reached out to me because she knows I spent almost a quarter of my career in a museum. So it's my soft spot. I want to say I had the honor and privilege of joining Chief Moore last week at the most recent graduation of Class 423. And I'm going to lean on the Chief a little bit here. In those 912 hours of training, I'm hoping we can get to 920 with an extra day. I know they go to the Museum of Tolerance. I'd love to see them spend a half a day at the LA Police Museum learning about this department and then spending the balance of that day learning the history of this city. I think it's very important that officers understand both. And I'm really glad to say, having been there, I appreciate the balanced presentation that you give of the department, those good times and those other times that were certainly challenging and if not embarrassing. You remember my reaction when I saw the life-size, larger than life-size poster of Robert William Stewart. And when you told me he was born enslaved in Kentucky and came here to be a police officer, it reminded me of the fact that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I can't even imagine what he went through as an officer at that time. The last thing I want to mention, too, is congratulations on your partnership with Dr. Goodall. I'm a huge fan. Her Roots and Shoots program has been in place for 40 years in Tanzania, and I think it's going to be a very valuable program we can offer to the youth here in Los Angeles. So thank you for reaching out to her and getting her still active and still running around the world to engage with the LA Police Museum. With that, I'll yield to Commissioner Briggs.
Thank you, President Suthers, for bringing this to the attention of the board. This was important. This is important. Executive Director, you said the words awareness. And I think you made all of us aware of the museum today. And I wholly support your mission of making others in Los Angeles aware of this museum. I think it's important. You touched on it just a little bit about some school kids going to the museum, because I know that in the city of Los Angeles, a lot of kids go to the Museum of Tolerance. I mean, that's just regularly on their agenda. I think it should also be on their agenda that they go to the Museum of the Los Angeles Police Department. I think that that's important part of our civic history as well. And I would hope that you're working with the school folks to ensure that kids of all ages get an opportunity to go, because I think it's extremely important. And I second Commissioner Suthers' thought that our own recruits not only go to the Museum of Tolerance, but also our own museum, so that they learn about the history of LAPD as well as the history of our city, a city that they have chosen to serve and to provide protection to. So thank you for your presentation today. Let us know how we can further support you, because you do have a supporting hand here with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Briggs. Vice President Shields.
Thank you, and thank you for a very excellent presentation. This is now on my list of things to do. A question that I have, and you mentioned kind of like the positive and negative stories of both our city and the department, and also how, crime has changed policing, but do you also get into the realness of how there have been actions that the department took that caused a stain on the department, right? Like the Rodney King, right? Like those are things that I think people, when they're learning about the full department, they need to know not only, the brave things that these department personnel do on a daily basis, but also things that have caused mistrust by the community.
Yes, we absolutely have. We actually have a civil unrest room. So we touch on the stories of what happened, how it happened, and what was, going on during that time. The important part about that and having all of your support is going to be able to really help us bolster those stories and making sure that we communicate, again, both sides. So we do have those rooms in place. As we continue to grow and we continue to get funding, we're able to adequately share those stories.
Thank you.
Real quick, I know Chief Moore has communicated to us in the past on highlighting some of those negative incidents and how we as a department can learn from that and grow from those experiences. So that is still an ongoing, it's not a complete project, but it's something that we're implementing.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I'd love to connect and learn more about the relevant programming that you all are planning on doing.
Absolutely.
In addition to what was presented today, and also learn about what partners you are leaning on in the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, thank you for your presentation, Chief.
Well, thank you, and I just want to thank both of you for your leadership and the continued efforts. The Los Angeles Police Museum represents, across American policing, a rarity, and that is to actually have a dedicated facility, iconic in the sense that it was a former Northeast station, so it's an actual working police station, for well over 50 years. It was actually the first station I worked on in 1982 on a ride-along. It was my first exposure. I remember still to this day, the upstairs roll call room. But in the last 30 years, it's been, or 25 years, it's been the home of our museum and a place to actually store and also present the artifacts. This organization is truly dependent on volunteerism. It's dependent on the philanthropic support, and it's in need of both, I will say. With what they have accomplished, though, and I'll say it's very much mindful that we want to tell both the good as well as the darker moments of this department, and Robert Stewart is a perfect example. While this is a man who came to this city as a former slave out of Kentucky and was our first African-American, first black police officer, he was also fired without due process because of alleged sexual assault. And when he was vindicated fully, he was never allowed to come back to this organization, and in fact would toil and work to the end of his days as a janitor. So in that presentation, when we recognized that error and that misdeed on the part of this department some 2 years ago, I believe, in addition to dedicating the central room, roll call room, this display identifies not just that he's the first black police officer, but the nature of the department, how we handled that. This was an organization that was segregated until the early 60s. And only in the mid-70s did we recognize the role of women. These are attributes that this museum provides clear and I believe, straightforward information on. As to your recommendation and request, we do have a historical component within our policing that talks about the history of Los Angeles and the interplay with LAPD, and we do involve a professionals advisory committee made up of community stakeholders that bring the various perspectives of that interplay between us, but the various communities of Los Angeles and the various identities of Los Angeles, such as the LGBTQ, the black community, Hispanic, the AAPI, and so forth. So we will, however, just texting back and forth with Chief Choi, will ensure the visit to the museum is part of that as well. So we can tell our own history and have officers see, and most importantly, recognize a place they can come back to, because our study is not something that'll be accomplished in 4 hours or in a day, but it's really something that this is a resource that we want to see our own personnel, our own people come back and utilize. So thank you.
Well, Chief, thank you. I want to thank UCLA Chief John Thomas and Chief, you personally, for bringing Officer Stewart's story to life several years ago, because most of us had never heard of him or what happened to him and how he was reinstated after all those decades of the, if you will, the allegation that was unfounded in the end, and you recognized him properly, so really appreciate that. And again, thank you, Executive Director Arias and Sergeant Alanis, for your wonderful presentation. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
We will now move on to regular agenda item B, the department's report on injury on duty process audit. And let's see, I've got Lieutenant. And, okay, great. Thank you. So if you will introduce everyone that's at the table, and the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Commissioners and Chief. My name is Lieutenant Mark Wardotto. I'm currently the Administrative Officer in charge at Audit Division. To my left, I have Police Administrator Brian Taft, who's currently the Commanding Officer of Personnel Division. And to my right, I have Ms. Adama Franklin, who is the project manager on this audit that we're presenting today. She did all the hard work. The Injured on Duty, or IOD process audit, was conducted by Audit Division with the purpose of determining whether the department followed IOD policies and procedures with respect to timeliness, documentation, and notification. This audit covered 4 objectives, with one of the objectives, number 3, being broken down into 2 sub-objectives. While the department performed well in objectives 1 and 4, with a compliance rate of 88% and 100% respectively, the department's rate of compliance in objective 2 was 72%, which dealt with obtaining a work status report duty certificate post-doctor visit from an injured employee. Objective 3's compliance rates were as follows. Objective 3A was 76%, which dealt with proper work status change after the 180 days of modified duty assignment had been reached. Objective 3B was 35%, which dealt with proper payroll classifications of modified duty assignment. Audit Division did meet with Personnel Division, who were in general agreement with all the audit findings. Thank you. If there was any questions from the board.
Thank you. I have one question.
Yes, sir.
As it relates to table number 2 in your report, it's identified as detailed findings for objective 1, timely provision of the workers' compensation claim form to the employee.
Yes, sir.
In your first item at the top of that page where you have finding descriptions, I'd just like to know why the forms are routinely provided to the employee after the required deadline. In one instance, it's 1 day, then 11 days, 2 days. In one instance, it's not documented. So there seems to be somewhat of a pattern, at least for that particular collection of data that you've presented, and I'm just trying to understand that.
Yes, sir. We did have a compliance rate of 88%, but to answer your question, oftentimes, unfortunately, if the employee was injured severely, he'd be, part of the form is a requirement of signature, and if the officer is admitted to the hospital, there's a delay of the supervisor to get the form signed by the employee, or the employee goes home straight from the hospital. There's an error on the management part of getting that form before he goes home. But we do the follow-up to the residents to have it ultimately signed. But the requirement is to have that form delivered and signed by the employee within 24 hours. But again, sometimes circumstances arise, as I mentioned, where we fall short of that.
Is the employee affected adversely as a result of the delay?
No, sir. No, sir. It's a form advising of what's being done, the rights that's afforded to the employee, but they are made aware of them, even though the form may be delayed. They are made aware of the rights.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Are there any other questions?
And Commissioner President, the other belief, the importance of this, though, is I believe it is a state requirement.
Yes.
So that's the process that's involved, and it is a paper-based process rather than something that's been in electronic form. And I'm hopeful that it's one of about 70 different systems that we use that are still anchored in systems that were designed 50 to 70 years ago. So we're looking to, as part of our modernization, to update our personnel forms as well.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Vice President Shields.
I just had one question, and I believe this is to personnel. I think there's a recommendation or a statement in the report that the department consider reevaluating the requirement of department personnel to submit the ISR. Can you speak a little bit about, why the department should consider reevaluating this requirement, and what's the requirement really there for? And is that required by state law? Obviously, if it's required by state law, we will not reevaluate that requirement.
So to answer your question, the ISR is the injury status report, otherwise known as a doctor's note typically, from the doctor who's treating the employee. The ISR is actually a specific form that the city has created to be able to accept in lieu of a doctor's note. What we typically get though nowadays is doctor's notes. A lot of doctors don't want to take the time to be able to fill out a separate form that the city provides. So our recommendation is to move away from that process and just accept that doctor's note or doctor's certification as a form of notification to the department indicating the employee's status.
And do other parts of the city allow the acceptance of the doctor's note only and not the ISR?
Yes.
Form? Thank you. And does the department currently just require the ISR form?
So our manual currently states that we require either a doctor's note, doctor's certification, or the ISR in lieu of that doctor's certification. So we would accept either or.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Garcia, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Briggs?
Thank you, President Suthers. How much fraud, if any, is uncovered? Maybe this question has already been asked. I don't know. Okay. In determining whether or not employees are overstating or embellishing the injury that they have.
As far as the actual numbers of fraud abuse, if it's taking place, that was out of the scope of this audit, and I don't have the information, but I can get it for you. But there are systems and steps in place when an officer is injured to an attempt to prevent any type of fraud. The requirement of the doctor's notes, supervisor welfare checks, and if there is any kind of suspect of any kind of abuse that is going on, the department does have an entity that the case is referred to investigate that possible abuse.
Okay. Can the commission be provided with that data?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. All right. So with that, I would move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We'll now move on to the last regular agenda item.
Next you have
There's two more?
C and D.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm reading that report and skipping it. Item C, our Small Unmanned Aerial Systems Annual Report. And we'll have Deputy Chief Kowalski, and you're here solo, sir? Okay, great.
Good morning, President Southers, Board of Police Commissioners. Los Angeles Police Department has completed its most recent Small Unmanned Aerial Systems Annual Report. The evaluation period is dated July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2023. It highlights 7 areas. That includes deployments, scenarios that necessitated its use, its effectiveness, and recommendations moving forward. A total of 14 requests for the use of small unmanned systems were initiated and requested for approval. Of the 14, 10 deployments were conducted. The remaining 4 were incidents that were resolved prior to the SUAS being utilized. Consistent with the approval process in the special order, either myself or the designated acting commanding officer in my absence approved each of these deployments. Notifications were made immediately to both Chief Michael Moore and Mr. Richard T. for their awareness. For overall effectiveness in all of these scenarios, the use of the SUAS allowed the department to deploy unarmed technology into a tactical situation that reduced the risk of any persons being harmed, avoided an armed encounter, and provided greater visibility and situational awareness to our incident commanders. Additionally, the recent replacement of our outdated SUAS systems will now allow for even better visibility, longer battery lives, voice communication capability, and more agility with our SUAS fleet during these incidents. The LAPD was in full compliance with meeting the due dates and timelines for reporting purposes. For the 14 requests, each report was submitted for review to the Bureau and office within 2 business days, and copies provided to the Inspector General and Police Commission Liaison consistent with the written policy. Each of our deployments was reviewed to ensure that Fourth Amendment and privacy concerns were adhered to. All flights, including training flights, were in compliance with FAA regulations. All data collected for each deployment by an SUAS is retained and stored in compliance with department policies. I'm prepared to any questions you have regarding this report.
Thank you, Chief. I'll go to Commissioner Briggs if he has any questions.
Thank you. Chief Kowalski, how many drones do we have?
Well, with the approval today now of on the donation, the Office of Special Operations has 9. So those are broken down by metropolitan, specific to SWAT. We now have 5 deployable, 1 for training purposes. That's 6. Out of our Emergency Services Division, under hazardous devices and materials sections, we have 1. And under transit, Bureau, specific to major collision investigations, we have 2, totaling 9.
Chief, today, one of the public comments touched on the possible use of these devices for upcoming events that we have in the city in 2026 and 2028, the World Cup and the Olympics. My personal opinion is that I view these devices as force multipliers. Right now, the department stands at 8,991 sworn officers. I dare say that that is not a sufficient number if either the Olympics or the World Cup were held right now. We would need additional personnel, and while I know we have additional jurisdiction, sheriffs, Inglewood Police, Culver City Police, it doesn't account for certain things that may happen during these types of events. And it has been shown that aerial devices like this can benefit law enforcement agencies. Are we taking a serious look at whether or not this should be one of the tools that the city of Los Angeles uses in preparation for these upcoming events?
It's a great question, sir, and I know under the Office of Special Operations, Chief Moore has directed our strategic planning group in preparation, not just for LA 2028, but these major events that you mentioned, is how prepared are we as a department, what in terms of equipment needed to support these events with our federal partners. Those meetings with them are ongoing, specific to the SUAS and their role in this. I absolutely agree with you. As now that we've been in this program for more than 4 years, we realized that when we started the program, I think we had a basic fundamental level of the capabilities of SUAS during these type of incidents. And we're starting to see now, as we've moved into seeing how these SUAS have developed and adapted and can resolve incidents quicker, we can clear locations. It's important that we continue to assess not just the fleet we have for day-to-day operations, but how we can support these major events with our federal partners. It really starts with them. Those conversations are ongoing. In fact, this afternoon I have a meeting with the Secret Service and Strategic Planning Group to talk about these particular items and how well are we prepared to address a threat in a major event. And it really falls under my role under this Bureau and this office to ensure that we're prepared.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Commissioner Briggs. Vice President Shields.
Thank you. Chief, do you have a sense of, the number of deployments that the department had in the last year, how that compares to, say, other major cities that also have these types of small unmanned aerial systems?
Well, every department, they have a different policy as it relates to the use of SUAS. Some other departments allow their field supervisors to carry the SUAS in the trunks of their vehicle, and they can deploy them at will. Ours is a very restrictive policy, obviously, and I think similar to the quadruped unmanned ground vehicle policy that we implemented this year, I think it's important that we stress having a policy that's transparent, restrictive, and that the public understands the importance that we're holding ourselves accountable. And when you look at the number of deployments we had this year, it was 14 approvals, but only 10 deployments. So obviously, even though I might be approving each of these deployments, we're still assessing it even before we launch the SUAS. And I think that's a critical part because things come up in incidents, whether it's a clinician or a mental evaluation unit is out at scene and we find information that could change how we're going to handle a call, or one of our investigators finds surveillance video that changes where we believe the suspect is. We don't want to just launch it and send it out there and then we'll assess. I can't particularly speak about other departments, but I can tell you some of our international partners, even though they use SUAS in their fleet, they are restricted through their country's legislation. So I think we're right in the middle where we want to be, and I think our policy demonstrates that.
And Commissioner, if I can add, this policy was crafted with a great deal of input by the commission at the time. And the department's response under the leadership of the commission then was to have the level of restrictions that you see before you. And I think it was appropriate at the time, given the concerns that this device would be overly intrusive, that would have privacy interests that would be challenged and perhaps violated, and the trust of building within our community was needed, that level of oversight and guidance. However, I do think, and I enjoy hearing concerns by this commission about the evolution of the use of this system and whether or not its expansion could afford the department greater utility, more efficiency, and while still protecting the public's trust that their privacy interests will be protected. As a reminder, these systems have no facial recognition. As a reminder, they're not weaponized in any fashion or form. As a reminder, they're not used during First Amendment demonstrations. Now, there are agencies across America in which, for instance, that last issue, they are used in demonstrations and as a means of understanding large crowd dynamics and being able to surveil those. So the department, in this annual report, I believe the mechanism was set up for governance that would say, here's the state of this, here's how our compliance is being met to ensure that we don't have a mission creep or drift. But at the same time, I look forward to, as chief, I look forward to understanding the commission's willingness that with the use of this and the successful use of it, while also witnessing its use by agencies such as the fire department on an ongoing and regular basis, utilities, other public works. The use of this technology is only expanding. And is there an opportunity that, given our staffing constraints, that there's more room here to ensure that that we are meeting today's needs, expectations, but also resources. I mean, that we're taking advantage of what this technology can offer us.
Thank you, Chief, and I agree. I do think this would be an important part of the strategic planning that you're undertaking, is identifying additional areas where this may be something that can be a force multiplier, as Commissioner Briggs mentioned, and can, allow the department to end situations safely and more quickly. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Garcia.
So a couple questions. I'll ask them in bulk. So I'm curious how long it takes to actually have the drone arrive on scene on average, or how long did it take in the Fortune request? Connected to that, I'm curious to understand a little bit better what's the determinant for approving the request, and I'm curious about that in particular because I see really there's only two in South Bureau that were done, 4 in Central minus 2 Central that weren't actually deployed, 4 in Valley minus 1 have not deployed, 2 in West minus 1, and 2 County. How is that determined? Where are those stations? What are the times they arrive at each one of those scenes and at each one of those bureaus in particular? And connected to that comes the cost savings and life savings. In the reports mentioned that at this time you're unable to determine that. And so the question is, what is it you need in order to arrive at potentially putting together a report that can determine those savings.
I'll try to hit all the questions. I'll try to answer all the questions you had in there if I can recall them all. But starting with, how long does it take for the SUAS to be on scene? Well, when an incident begins and our SWAT lieutenant assesses it, we make a determination, A, if it meets the criteria for SWAT to respond to an incident, and then what type of not just number of personnel that we want to respond, but what type of equipment. Generally on every type of, we'll say a standard barricaded suspect, we average about 125 of those a year. Right now, year to date, we're almost 3/4 into the year. We're right on track. I think we're about 98. And with that, part of the response to a scene like that would include our technology truck. So we have the traditional equipment you see, which is the armor and things you might see on television. But just as important to that is our technology vehicle. And in that includes our fleet, that are assigned to SWAT. So they're already on scene. We have a technology cadre made up of 6 members from SWAT, and they're very well versed. QUGV, robotics, SUAS. They're very technically savvy in that area. As part of our plan, when we are at scene, obviously it begins with negotiations. If we can make an attempt to negotiate with the person or persons, we'll do that and try to resolve it peacefully. As it elevates up, we assess if technology should be included in that. Now, when you did a breakdown of the incidents for the year, I mean, those are multi-unit homes, those are residents, those are warehouses, there's large fields. So you can see that we face a lot of different type of buildings and sites, so we have to assess those. Based on where we believe we're trying to work the problem, we'll assess what type of SUAS we need. Large for outdoor, smaller that can go inside. Do we have the capability to go inside? So when those discussions are made with an incident commander, a SWAT commander at scene, either myself or one of the other representatives from our bureau is there. They'll make a recommendation and ask of me to approve that. And that's the way the special order is written. So that's a telephone call, and we'll go over it. In fact, Sunday night I was out at the scene, Hollywood, and I was out there with them, and we assessed it, we approved it, and deployed. So it's immediate. And I gave the examples to Vice President Shields about some of these incidents we don't deploy. And like I said, we're continuing to assess the situation, whether through intelligence information, video. But it only takes minutes really to get those launched and set up. Oftentimes, we have the luxury here in the city of having helicopters, but sometimes we don't. And with weather, we've been on scenes where we use some of the larger drones, and they can act as sort of an overwatch for us for those scenes. So that really allows us to do that. So when going back to the policy that we talked about earlier, there's specific criteria that we would use the SUAS. And so part of the report and assessment is ensuring that we fall under those situations and scenarios. And I think you mentioned the different parts of the city and looking at it. And I looked at the 14 approvals on it. It seems to be spread out. So it really doesn't come down to a specific geography of the city. We're really assessing the scene and what we have to deal with. And in terms of, I think the last part of it was about cost savings. And I think Commissioner Briggs talked about the force multiplier, and maybe this is a good way of answering that as a starter for you, is where we're trying to go with being efficient in our use of SUAS and how we've evolved is now that we're seeing the capabilities of these SUAS and how fast they are, agile, we're finding that they're remaining mobile inside, where before we were having problems. We now have some of the SUAS have garters on them, so think of like when you had a plane when you were a kid and you played with it inside and the wings would hit the walls and it would drop. We were having those type of problems early on with the SUS. Now with the garters, generally those can fly in and around a residence very effectively, and we're able to find what we're looking for in there. So with that and the speed, and then the advancements of our ground robotics this year, we now could clear a residence safely in probably a quarter of the time than before, when we would have to go through a longer process of deploying gas, sending in a search team and putting them at risk. And then that could take hours. And we have to be sensitive to our communities too about when we come out to a scene, it often can be a large array of vehicles and disruptive, and the overtime costs of not just our personnel, but the affected commands and how that impacts other divisions in the city being held over for overtime. So those are things we look at and assess. I don't have the numbers for that for you today, but I think those are some of the immediate costs that we look at.
Thank you. Chief, I'd just like to lean into a statement that's articulated in your report under number 5, where you say the deployment of the small unmanned aerial systems provided a safe alternative to potentially violent confrontations between suspects, officers, and the community at large, and provided opportunity for de-escalation. And then I notice in the deployment, there's a common theme here of armed barricaded suspect. You had 14 authorizations to fly, 10 actual deployments. In all of those, how many resulted in an officer-involved shooting?
0.
Thank you. I have no further questions. I'd like to make a motion that we recommend, actually, we got to recommend for board action. So, that we accept the report.
I second that we approve
Recommend
the
for board.
department's report.
Recommendation for board action. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Please. We'll now move on to regular end agenda item D, which is the California Public Records Act inspection. Captain Galani, Police Administrator Sergeant. And if you would, all introduce everyone that's here.
Sure. I'm Sharon Sargent, Commanding Officer of Audit Division, and I have here with me Miss Liu. She is the project manager for this particular audit. And I also have Captain Galani. He is with Risk Management Legal Affairs Division. Today, I'm going to share with you an overview of the California Public Records Act inspection. This was conducted by Audit Division as part of the 2022 annual audit plan. As you may recall, this inspection is part of a settlement agreement that is between the City of LA and the ACLU of Southern California. It was signed in 2019. Because the agreement requires a 5-year inspection of SEPRA compliance, the department established an audit plan from 2020 through 2024, and this marks the department's 3rd consecutive year. The agreement outlines 20 different terms for the City of LA, and 6 of those fall under the purview of the police department. 3 of the 6 were one-time requirements, which involved creating a SEPRA policy, creating a SEPRA unit to handle requests, and also creating an online portal for the public to view and access documents and also submit requests online. All 3 of these were satisfied in 2020. The remaining 3 areas are ongoing, and Audit Division will continue to monitor these areas. They include proactive disclosure of department policies, preserving historical data, and also conducting an annual SEPRA inspection to monitor compliance. Risk Management Legal Affairs Division is the department entity that's responsible for SEPRA requests. For this inspection, auditors looked at a sample of 108 requests from January through June of 2022. The assessment looked at timely notifications, justified extensions, and for any unfilled requests, whether they were allowed and justifiable under SEPRA rules. So the report shows that the department performed very well overall, and it showed improvement from last year. Of the areas assessed, all received compliance of 91 to 100%. The one area that received 91% involved 2 instances where the department didn't extend the due date with the requester. Audit Division did meet with Risk Management Legal Affairs Division, and they addressed these issues through training, and they are also in general agreement with the audit's findings. The City Attorney's Office also reviewed this inspection to ensure that it satisfied the settlement agreement. And like I said, I have Ms. Liu with me and also Captain Galani if there's any further questions.
Thank you, Madam Administrator, and I'll yield to Commissioner Briggs for any questions or comments.
Just one question. Do I read this report correct that we have 5 years of compliance and it started in 2019 and therefore it will end in 2024?
It started in 2020.
2020.
The agreement was signed in 2019.
Okay. Thank you.
Vice President Shields.
I had a question in terms of the audit involved a sample of 108 record requests. Can you give us an idea of how many records requests the department gets in, say, a 6-month period?
Sure. I will address that. Yeah, the department from January through June 2022 received 1711 public records and closed all of them. So we selected our sample from this 1711. And the confidence level is 95%, and we used 88% proportion of success, which was based upon the prior audit results with the lowest compliance rate of one objective. So that was 88% proportion of success. We were hoping that we might have the similar issues identified in this audit. So that will give us a larger sample. So actually you can see we're having 108 versus 102 from last year. So we're looking at more sample size, bigger sample size this time.
Got it. Thank you. And does the audit take into account any lawsuits that have been filed relating to any public records requests or settlements or other kinds of findings relating to public records requests?
For this one, the short answer is no, because we selected our sample based upon the inspection period, which was January through June 2022. That's our third-year inspection timeframe. And anything outside of this timeframe won't be considered. And we just treat anything just as a regular public record request. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Shields. Commissioner Garcia.
No questions. Thank you.
No questions. So with that, I have no questions. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
Commissioner President, if I could, just one comment. First of all, I want to thank Audit Division for this inspection. Actually, this audit, actually it's an inspection, my apologies, for compliance. But I also want to recognize Risk Management Division, the very valid question of how many Public Record Act requests there are, the performance of this command that is essentially about 50% staffed. And with such extraordinary levels of an increase in the number of Public Records Act requests is something nothing less than remarkable. There are dedicated individuals that are striving to do their best to meet these requests and be compliant with law, to express exemptions as allowed and provided for the safety of whether it be the confidentiality or the safety of the underlying investigations, while still providing the transparency that the Public Records Act request envisions. So this inspection I take as a mark of achievement. It is an improvement from the previous one, and I think that it's demonstrative that in the state of California, which has many agencies that are far, far behind in regards to any level of compliance, that we have much to be proud of, and I'm proud of the work that the people that are engaged in this are doing. So my thanks and appreciation.
Thank you, Chief.
Well, Chief, thank you. With that, I'd like to withdraw my motion and ask a question. At 50%, what efforts are being engaged to recruit people to your ranks?
So I can take that. So the Chief Moore's been very supportive of us trying to bring more people in on loan right now. I'm actually working on that project, trying to bring some officers in who will be interested in doing this job and be capable of doing this job. So my lieutenant has been reaching out to people, and we have a few names we're looking at. We currently have, in all of risk management and legal affairs, 13 management analyst positions open, who we are now interviewing for and trying to get personnel to fill these positions. I would probably take about 8 of those, put them into the CPRA unit. It's just a long, drawn-out process to try to get people into the department with background checks and things of that nature. We are trying.
And I will add that additionally, we're in a very competitive field with this job classification. Many of these employees in other departments are working from home in a telecommuting setting, and also or working for proprietary departments that pay bonuses and do not require the background investigations that we do. So this is, however, in my discussions with Mayor Bass, with our personnel, our general manager, Dana Brown, these are realities that we're attempting to face head-on, including as upcoming contract negotiations open for various civilian classifications professionals, is to establish added incentives through wages and benefits so that we can attract and retain. We attract a great deal of civilian professional staff that we then lose to other departments who offer them benefits and wages that exceed ours. And so we are an entry point, and we are looking, just as we did with our civilian members, looking for strategies in which to stop that process of us being a harvest center for other city departments.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all again for the report. I'd like to move that we approve the department's report. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. The commission will now recess into closed session.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 5A, 1 and 2 in accordance with Government Code 54957.
Item 5A1, officer-involved shooting animal, number 054-22. Commission on a 4-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the Chief of Police, which were tactical debrief, 1 Detective 1, drawing exhibiting in policy, 1 Detective 1, lethal use of force in policy, 1 Detective 1. Item 5A2, officer-involved shooting number 055-22. Commission on a 4-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the Chief of Police, which were tactical debrief, 2 police officer 3s, 3 police officer 2s, 2 police officer 1s. Drawing exhibiting in policy, 1 police officer 3, 3 police officer 2s, 1 police officer 1. Less lethal use of force in policy, 1 police officer 2, 1 police officer 1. Lethal use of force in policy, 1 police officer 1. That concludes the report out.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Director. I would move that we adjourn today's commission meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Commission adjourned.
Thank you.